Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Of course, this is exactly when my dog starts barking. You know, she hasn't barked all day, but the minute we go live. So I'm just going to wait a moment just to see if anyone is watching, just to make sure that we have sound before we start. So we'll see. I think there must be a delay because that is why I don't see you guys right away. So if you're there and you can hear me, all okay. Thank you. Okay, Amy, thank you so much. All right. See, this is Bailey's been sitting down all day nicely in the minute. Hi, Gina. It's going so fast. That's why we need Kenny, but I'll tell you what happens. Hi, Colleen. It's going so fast that's why it's hard to respond in real. Hi, Kimberly. All right. So, hello, Shelly. We could just be here all day. I'll say hello to everybody. Hello, Andrea from Canada. Hello. Oh, Christy. Oh, thank you for saying hi to Bailey. Hello, Patricia. Okay. Hi, Kate. We'll do the whole Weight Loss Wednesday. I'll just say hi to everybody. All right. So we'll get started. Thank you so much. So hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of Weight Loss Wednesday. I'm Chef AJ, the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and this is your chance to ask me questions about healthy, permanent, and sustainable weight loss. Hello, Hillary. So the best way to ask a question, if you're in Ultimate Weight Loss, you can just ask it on our private page, and that's where all these questions came from today, at least most of them. And if you're not, consider either joining the Ultimate Weight Loss Program or at least just signing up for my mailing list at www.eatunprocessed.com. And hello, Jennifer. All right, so let's get started. Kenny called me at 10 minutes to 2 that he needed to get his car started, a jump, and he doesn't live close enough, and I didn't want to delay the broadcast. So we need consistency here, right? Okay, so here we go. We had a lot of questions today, so I'll try to not go quickly, but get through as many as I can. So Diane says, I know that smoothies are not allowed, so what else can I do with my high-powered blender? Well, you can sell it on eBay, and I'm being facetious, but actually that's where people get such great deals on things like these Vitamixes and Excalibur dehydrators, because people buy them and realize they're not going to use them. So I have many friends that have gotten practically new ones or refurbished ones on eBay, but I was just kind of being funny there. So what can you do with it, Diane? So many things. So you can make hummus in it. High-powered blenders make things really, really smooth and creamy. So just because you're not doing smoothies, you can make hummus. You can make delicious salad dressings. Thank you for the compliment, Liz. What about soups? The great thing about these high-powered blenders like the Vitamix and the Blendtec and maybe other brands that I'm not familiar with is in 3 minutes you can make hot, steaming hot soup. If you have my book Unprocessed, I have one recipe called Dream of Tomato Soup, and then I made an enlightened version where you can, I'm busy lady, yeah, where you can just put vegetables in, and in 3 minutes, you have steaming hot soup. No cooking, no cleaning a pot. So I would definitely make delicious soups. And if you have the blender, it usually comes with a cookbook that tells you how to do things like minestrone or tortilla soup. So you can make soups. James loves his Ninja. I'm guessing that's a high-powered blender. The other thing you can do is make frozen fruit sorbets. So even though I have what's called the Champion Juicer, which is wonderful for making the most creamy banana ice cream, you can do it great in a high-powered blender. The thing is you're going to have to add just a little bit of liquid, maybe some unsweetened juice or unsweetened plant milk or water to get it to process. So there's many things you can do with a high-powered blender, even if you're not doing smoothies. But let's go back to the original question. Smoothies are not allowed. So I don't believe you're an Ultimate Weight Loss Program, but smoothies can be very healthy. It just depends what is in the smoothie. So like a glass of orange juice is a glass of orange juice, but a smoothie or a green smoothie could be myriad different things. I mean, I've seen green smoothies, the kind that we have at True North, that are made from cucumber, spinach, celery and zucchini, and maybe some ice. And I've seen green smoothie recipes online that have cacao nibs and peanut butter and, you know, a coconut oil and all kinds of sweet fruits and dates, and maybe have 1,200 calories. So there's no agreement into what a smoothie or a green smoothie is. And so the reason, and again, we don't not allow them, because I look at things as good, better, best. If you're stuck in Las Vegas airport, which has happened to me, and you want to go to Jamba Juice, and I've done this and asked for a smoothie that was mostly green, made from water instead of juice or almond milk, I don't see a problem with that. But if you're chugging them down every day and your goal is weight loss and you haven't achieved that goal, you might want to reconsider. I believe on my website, eatunprocessed.com, on the Ultimate Weight Loss page, I still believe we have those videos. And I show the difference between a smoothie and the contents of a smoothie. So I learned this at True North. Pretty much everything that I know and that I share with you guys, I learned either from Dr. Goldhammer, Dr. Lyle, or Dr. McDougall. So when I went to True North, which is Martin Luther King Jr. birthday weekend, which is coming up 5 years ago, weighing more than 50 pounds than I weigh now, and on medication, I had been drinking a green smoothie every day for 8 years, because compared to what I was drinking for breakfast before, which was a Coke Slurpee with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup, a green smoothie was a pretty healthy choice. And the recipe is in my book Unprocessed, and it's certainly pretty healthy. I mean, it had a half a pound of either spinach or kale, had a cup of unsweetened almond milk, 2 cups of frozen blueberries, a frozen banana, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed. I mean, what could be wrong with that? Well, really nothing. It was about 400 calories. But the problem was I couldn't lose any weight drinking a smoothie. And then Dr. Lyle explained to me calorie density and satiety, and he told me that when I got home from True North, to put all the ingredients in my blender, but instead of pushing blend, dump them out and put it in a bowl and try to eat it. Well, when I tried to eat the contents of the blender that would have been blended into the smoothie, I got full at about the halfway point. And that's where I learned that while eating a green or drinking a green smoothie is way better than a Coke Slurpee for breakfast, it really wasn't giving me the satiety. And Charles has proven this. Charles is my husband as well. He's not overweight, but he would have a green smoothie after his vegetables. He eats vegetables for breakfast just like the rest of us in Ultimate Weight Loss. And he would find he would just be not full, not satisfied. And so now he's having as his second breakfast, we're all hobbits here in Ultimate Weight Loss, he's having oatmeal, and he's much more satisfied having oatmeal and fruit. So, you know, the thing is if you are a parent trying to get a kid to eat vegetables, you're probably not going to get them to eat them for breakfast if they've never eaten them. So a green smoothie that has some green in it that just isn't almond butter and cacao nibs, it could be a really good thing. I've taught at places with people that were underserved financially, you know, poor places where I've done free demos at churches, and I'm not going to get a 7-year-old kid that is eating Red Bull and Cheetos for breakfast to eat, you know, roasted Brussels sprouts for breakfast. But if I make my nutrient-rich chocolate smoothie with spinach and dates where you can't even taste the spinach, I might be able to get some vegetables in him that way. And it's the same thing when I do presentations at assisted livings. I've got seniors that are in their 90s that can't chew. Not going to get them to eat kale. So smoothies can be very useful. Now, the thing about liquid calories in general, and we talk about this a lot, they're just not favorable for satiety. So whether it comes from the smoothie or the juice or the coffee drink, they're just not. And I had this reaffirmed at my last trip to True North a few weeks ago by the dietitian David Goldman, who reiterated the same thing, that liquid calories are just not favorable for weight loss, and that the smoothie, depending on how much fruit you have in it, it raises your blood sugar much more quickly than eating the food. When your blood sugar gets raised quickly, your insulin gets raised quickly. Insulin is the hormone responsible for driving fat into the cell. And Dr. Clapper has talked about this, and Dr. Esselstyn about too much fructose, because people in general don't do green smoothies that are green. I just taught at a spa in Ojai called the Oaks. Wonderful, by the way, and I've been invited back. If you want to see me there, I believe my date is April 7th. And they made a green smoothie after the yoga class, and they gave us about this much, but it was pretty much just green. I think it might have had a little piece of orange or a couple of grapes. It wasn't really sweet. So, smoothies are different, but, you know, if you've had dental surgery, if it's a choice between having a green smoothie or going to Starbucks for an 800-calorie caramel macchiato grande, whatever, you know, have the smoothie. So, okay. So, why does everything itch like the minute you get online? You know, it's crazy. All right. So Julie says, any tips on getting started with strength training? I get plenty of cardio through running, but I am really pathetic when it comes to strength and flexibility, and I don't know where to start. Well, first of all, don't call yourself pathetic. You know, how you talk about yourself is really important. I'm learning more and more about that, because we're going to get to that in one of these questions where people say, well, I'm good, I ate this way, I'm bad, I ate. No, you're not pathetic, you're normal. Because if you're pathetic, I'm pathetic, because that is the thing that I am the weakest on, even weaker than meditation. And I have every intention to do it. I have hand weights in every room of the house, the bathroom, the kitchen. And before I hurt my back on September 10th, I was doing it. But I got to tell you, I don't know where to start other than start. And, you know, make a micro goal. Just say, I'm going to lift, I should have brought my weight. I'm going to lift a weight and do 1 rep and see what happens. I really recommend for these fitness questions, because this is not my area of expertise. I didn't exercise till I was 52. John Pierre, who runs the Ultimate Weight Loss Program with me, is the true expert on not only nutrition and fitness, but cognitive function. And he's trained elite athletes all over the world and celebrities and federal agents. He charges $75 for a 30-minute consult, which you can get on my website, eatunprocessed.com, and he'll know the answer to this. But I'm in the same boat as you, and maybe we can share the consult, because I have made every effort, because I know that is what's going to help me, but I don't do it either. So this is the blind leading the blind. So thank you. All right, Heidi says, she wants to know if grains can cause mild skin breakouts. She says when she sticks to potatoes, veggies, and a little bit of fruit, her skin seems to stay nice and clear. But if she gets into her latest guilty pleasure of raw, uncooked, extra thick rolled oats, she wakes up with a few spots on her chin. Since it seems to be a pattern, it made her wonder about the inflammatory potential of grains. Dr. McDougall wrote in his January 2012 newsletter that women with a diagnosis of osteopenia and osteoporosis like her should consider minimizing acidic grains and legumes, and instead should emphasize alkaline starchy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, and fruit. So, it always impresses me that whenever you talk to Dr. McDougall or email him, and I've seen him do this in person. He visited us at True North when we were doing the Iron Chef, and you can see that wonderful competition on the page that you're watching now. And you'll ask Dr. McDougall, like any question, he'll say, oh, I covered that in my March 2003 newsletter. I mean, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, and he can remember what he's written in every single newsletter. So that's amazing. So, when I've had situations with whether it's IBS or allergies, all the good doctors told me that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So regardless of what the literature shows or the scientific research, you got to do what's good for you. And it sounds that for you, this is really what's happening. And what you could do is just go 30 days, or pick a number. 30 days I think is good, or a week, whatever, and don't eat any grains, and just because you will be fine just eating potatoes and non-starchy vegetables. I lived on potatoes, well, actually sweet potatoes and zucchini, for 8.5 months. That's the elimination diet of all elimination diets, which is what I recommend if you have something like IBS, which I know some of you have written me about, but I'm not really sure it's appropriate for the weight loss podcast. But you can always do the elimination diet on drmcdougall.com. It's very healthy. You're not going to become nutritionally deplete, doing this for a few weeks or even a few months, as long as you're getting enough calories. And believe me, you can get enough calories just from a starch, or just from a starch and potatoes, and be absolutely fine. So I would test that on yourself, going a little bit longer without them, and then doing it, and then documenting them. So, the thing is, you say it's a guilty pleasure, uncooked raw oats. So I don't recommend really uncooked raw oats for people that are, and if this is the Heidi that I think of, because we have like 3 Heidis, you're at goal weight, and so it's not a problem. But I don't recommend raw oats for somebody trying to lose weight. I recommend always eating your grain or any of your food in the wholest form possible. And so that would be the oat groat, which is very similar to rice. It takes the longest to cook, but that's why it's great if you have the Instant Pot electric pressure cooker, which I heard the 8-quart is on sale now for $129, but using the AJ discount of $50, it's always been $129, because I believe that pot was $179. But the groat is absolutely delicious. It's actually, in my opinion, the most delicious incarnation of the oat. The second incarnation, which would be the steel cut oat, where they take the whole oat groat and the sharp steel blade cuts it, and then you have, a somewhat broken grain, still, processed, but less processed than the rolled oat. Hey, Pittsburgh, that's where my family lives. And then you have the rolled oat, and then you have the one I would not eat is the instant oat. So rolled oats are actually not raw. They've been steamed and flattened, and so they are much more processed, which is why people, at least people in Ultimate Weight Loss, like the food addicts, seem to like them more, because I guess whatever we get from when we make grains into flours, those nice, neurochemicals that are activated in our brain from eating sugar and flour, it seems to happen more with rolled oats than with steel cut oats, or even more than oat groats. So again, if it's not a trigger for you, if you're not overeating, if you're at goal weight, I don't think it's a problem. I mean, I think that it can be very tasty. I mean, I have a recipe for it, and it's called Anytime Oats or Overnight Muesli. But the bigger issue is if it's causing you to break out and you don't want breakouts, then maybe this isn't the grain for you. Now, I would ask also if this is only happening with oats, or is it happening with other incarnation of oats? Does this happen when you eat oat groats? Does this happen when you eat steel cut oats? And does this happen when you eat other grains? And what about pseudo grains like buckwheat or quinoa or wild rice? So, you would have to test this. I mean, you could go to an immunologist, but I got to tell you, my experience is that every time I go, it's, well, except for my few real allergies that I've known about for a long time, like soy and dairy and black pepper, you know, it can change. So, you know, there's nothing unhealthy about minimizing grains and legumes. I'm not even sure there's anything unhealthy about never including them if you have a valid reason to do so. As Dr. McDougall has said, we can live on potatoes or sweet potatoes or winter squashes, but we cannot live on either grains or legumes because they lack vitamin A and C. I know for me, I think they're the most delicious of all the starch group. But again, I'm not telling you not to eat grains and legumes. I just find that they're my favorite, the sweet potato, the potato, and the winter squash. But feel free to eat beans and grains. They're very healthy as long as it's not causing you this problem. As far as their acidity, that I can't address because I actually haven't heard that until I saw this question. But I will check out that newsletter. And you know, the great thing about Dr. McDougall is you can write him. You don't have to pay to join his forum. He actually answers his email, and usually by the time you click send, you've got the answer back. But I would definitely try that. And you know, you can always have a free consult with Dr. Alan Goldhammer by filling out the online form at www.healthpromoting.com. You fill out an intake form, and then he calls you up, does a free 20-minute phone consult to determine if True North is right for you. And I know we had a question about whether he would do that for somebody out of the country. I would assume he would, because every time I've been there, I've seen people there from Canada and India and Asia. But I will ask him that on your behalf because for that. So, you know, test it out yourself and get back to me because I think it's very interesting. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is, does it happen with every brand of oats? Because, you know, I'm not saying you have a gluten sensitivity, but, you know, oats don't contain gluten in and of themselves, but often they're sourced in a location or made in not made in a factory, but packaged in a factory or grown in a place where there is gluten-containing grains. So are you buying dedicated gluten-free oats? That just would be interesting for me to find out. JP said something about lysine. Yes, so you don't listen. I didn't eat legumes for a year, and I'm going to start testing to see if I can eat them again. I actually had a positive experience recently with lentils where it was okay. I didn't eat that many of them, but the truth is if you had to, you could take lysine. I know that people that get cold sores, my dermatologist has said to take it anyway, but there's also lysine in quinoa. So, okay, every now and then I do see a question clearly without having to. I actually did finally get glasses this year, and it's not that I'm so vain that I won't wear them for the broadcast, but I'm only supposed to wear them when driving, and my fear is I only have one pair, and if I bring them in to do this, then I go driving, and I don't have my glasses in there, so maybe I should get another pair. Okay, thanks. All right. So, Carrie, which starch is the best for weight loss and best for satiation? Well, it's the one that's best for you. So in other words, I don't know if I can give you an answer and just say sweet potato, because if you hate sweet potatoes, you're not going to eat them, or maybe that's good and then you'll eat less. But realistically, the one that's best for satiation is the one that is most satiating to you, and the one that is best for weight loss is the one that is going to cause you to lose more weight. For me, it clearly was potatoes and sweet potatoes and the winter squashes like kabocha squash, which I love, and butternut squash. Those are my two favorite. And so that is what worked for me. Now, is that because they're lower in calorie density? Because potatoes and sweet potatoes of every variety in the winter squashes are 350 to 400 calories per pound, and grains are approximately 500 calories per pound, and legumes are about 550 to 600. I don't know. Or is it because I like them better and that's what worked for me? Now, there is something called the SI, the satiety index, and some people believe in it and some don't, because I've interviewed lots of doctors on my teleclasses, and some poo-pooed it and others didn't. And it's called the satiety index, developed by Dr. Susanna Holt. And I've been looking for her. She has articles in the medical research. I have found her medical journal articles and read them, but I can't seem to find her email. If anybody knows her, please let me know. You know, I burned my mouth today eating a potato waffle. Can't edit this, but anyways, it was going to drive me crazy, the whole thing. Hello from a spa. You're in a spa? Can I come to your spa? I love speaking at spas. All right, so anyway, according to Dr. Holt, the most satiating food is the white potato. And the SI is different than the GI, the glycemic index, which talks about how fast a food is converted to sugar, because people say, oh, white potatoes are very high in sugar. I'm not telling, first of all, everything turns to sugar. Everything you eat, that's the whole point. That's how our brain runs, is on glucose, on carbohydrate. So I'm not telling you to just eat a plain white potato. I never do. The Yukon Golds that I had for lunch had applesauce and onions on them, and my husband, when he eats the white potatoes, puts beans and salsa and corn on them, and he actually puts guacamole and jalapenos on his. So you never have to just eat a white potato, because the glycemic load is more important anyway than the glycemic index. The glycemic index of a chocolate cake is lower than watermelon, so should we just eat chocolate cake? And the glycemic index of ice cream is lower than carrots, so let's just eat cake and ice cream. No, you got to look at the whole meal, what you're eating. So I would test this out yourself. Again, unfortunately, this is a one size fits most. It's not a one size fits all program. So see which ones are most satiating to you. And the way you would do that is where you go by how you feel. Maybe on a given day, like I know that on the days that I spin, I'm infinitely more hungry sooner than days like today where I'm just sitting on my butt. And so I would use a spin day, because I know that the minute I get off that bike, I'm starving. And I would see if I eat potatoes or sweet potatoes, I eat this much, and it takes this long for me to get hungry again. And if I eat beans, I eat this much. And again, you don't have to do mono eating. You can eat things together. I eat things together all the time. When I make red lentil chili, it goes over potatoes or rice. Or when I make, everything I eat pretty much is over something, a potato or rice. When I eat salad, there's always starch in it. So I'm never not eating starch. So see which one works for you and get back to me. But as far as being best for weight loss, it's, again, if I know people that just love beans so much that they will literally just eat beans all day. And they'll eat beans for breakfast, and they'll eat beans for lunch, and they'll eat beans for dinner, and they'll eat they're eating too many beans. And beans are great. They're what's called a resistant starch, which means that 150 calories of beans, when you eat them, you only absorb about 50. That's why they're so great for diabetics. But if beans cause you to eat 10 cups of beans a day, maybe that's not going to be the best starch for you. So I hope I answered that question, but it's something you're going to have to test for yourself. Because there was a question similar about, if you need to eat denser carbohydrates. And if you're on watching, I didn't understand what you meant, why you would need to eat denser carbohydrates. All the complex carbs, in my opinion, are very dense. So eat them all, enjoy them all. There's over 18,000 different kinds of beans and lentils alone to choose from. So when people say it's boring, the plant-based diet is so boring, I'm like, well, when you eat meat, you eat 4 kinds of animals. When you eat plants, there's literally thousands. So the main thing is that at least you need to eat starch. You need to eat enough of it. Starch is the only thing, the complex carbohydrates, that truly satisfies the hunger drive. Without it, you will be hungry. And Dr. McDougall talks about this in his wonderful McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss book, that trying to eat less complex carbohydrates, it's like trying to breathe less air, and it's just not going to work. Your dietary style will eventually fail because you will be so hungry. So people do have some success on these low carb Atkins paleo diets, but I don't know anybody that has truly long-term success or satisfaction. That's why they need cheat days. I've been following Ultimate Weight Loss for over 5 years now, almost 2,000 days. I've never had a cheat day. I don't need a cheat day because everything I eat is absolutely delicious. Jennifer says, where do olives fall in the calorie density chart? Can I add a few to salad and still be losing weight, or should I avoid them also? So olives are 567 calories per pound. And so that means they're just slightly to the left of the red line, as is things like tofu and tempeh. But the problem is they are a high-fat food. And the other problem is it's very difficult to get olives without salt. You can get them. I've seen them online. I don't know how they taste. Usually the reason we like olives so much is because they are fat and salt. So people love combinations of sugar and salt, and sugar and fat and salt, and fat and sugar, or sugar, fat, and salt. Many books that I recommend written on those two subjects about how sugar, fat, and salt are addictive in and of themselves, but you put them together and even more so. So again, it would just depend. Sorry when my hand goes up, because apparently people can still, look how big my hand is compared to my face. People can still text and call me when I'm doing this. So, and that's why it's easier with Kenny. Oh, by the way, the screen is going to look backwards, the Chef AJ screen, because you have to reverse the camera. So, hey, if there's anybody out there that's tech savvy at all that wants to start helping me shoot these every Wednesday, please let me know, because I'm not, and I can't rely on Kenny. Not that he's unreliable, but I mean, it's not fair to him. He's like a regular person with a job. Not that you aren't. Anyway, so should you avoid them? So are you losing weight? Oh, thank you for saying you love me, because it's been a rough week. I appreciate that, Vicki. Are you losing weight eating them? That would be my first question. And is eating them making you eat more salads and enjoy it more, or is it making you actually just eat more olives? So I know that for me, like when there's these little treaty type things in my salads, not that I do it anymore, but like whenever there was a nut or a piece of an avocado, it would make me want those things more. So for me, if you watch the story, the lecture I gave at the Dr. McDougall Advanced Study Weekend called From Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch, also available on YouTube, I talk about my weight loss journey and how when I started, January 2nd, 2012, I wasn't eating sugar or flour, and so I eliminated nuts and nut butters, and I started to lose weight, and I did not eliminate seeds at first. And again, not that I think seeds are unhealthy. They're very healthy, and they're lower in caloric density than nuts. They're about 2,600 calories per pound versus 3,200. And so when I started eating vegetables for breakfast, I didn't like them any better than you guys did, and I was eating kale, which totally sucked at the beginning. I mean, now I love it and I can drink the broth. I think it's like manna from heaven. So I used my, not my house dressing, but I had a dressing for a tahini dill dressing, and I used a little bit on it so I could choke it down. And then I realized, the tahini was really high fat, and I learned to use other things on my kale, such as vinegars or cooking them with mushrooms and onions to make them very, very tasty, or lime juice, things like that. And so I stopped the tahini, and because people don't understand that it took me about 27 months to lose these 50 pounds. Yes, initially I lost 20 pounds just like that in the first 5 months, just from stopping nuts and nut butter, about a pound a week. But then it just kind of plateaued, because I know there's a question about a plateau coming up. And so I looked at my diet and I thought, well, maybe this is the culprit. And so I stopped the tahini, and the weight started to budge again. And then it plateaued again. And what was in my diet? Well, avocado. Now, I wasn't eating it every day, but I sure was liking it when I was eating it. There would be a slice here and there in a salad. I was getting a brown rice cucumber avocado sushi at this wonderful mom and pop store next door to me called Farm Boy, where I get my Hawaiian potatoes. And so I was doing that maybe two, 3 times a week. And then I stopped the avocado, and again, the weight started to go down again. So, psychological distress is a real thing, and when you have to give up things that you love, even if they're bad for you, that can cause psychological distress. And so with something like an olive, like when you say if you do a salad, if you're adding 3 to your salad and that's giving you pleasure so that you're going to eat that salad, who am I to say don't eat the olives? But if you're 5 pounds from goal weight and eating these high-fat foods are affecting you, and also because there's salt, and for some people having that salt stimulates overeating. Again, so guys, it almost like the answer to every question is these are things you're probably going to have to test for yourself. But if you want me to be Dr. Goldhammer and say, don't eat olives and make a picture and a sign, I'll do that. I had to have that done to me in November of 2010. November 7th was the last time I had chocolate, and it was giving me migraines, and my insurance wasn't paying for the medicine I needed for the migraines, and I knew there was a connection, and I went to this immunologist, and sure enough, I found out that chocolate was high in histamine, because the thing is, when I didn't eat chocolate, I didn't get a migraine. I already had a pretty clean diet, and so he wrote on a prescription pad with the date, his name, just like for medication, he said, do not eat chocolate. And I carried it around. I made a copy for my fridge, and it worked for me. So if you need me to tell you not to eat olives, if that's going to help, I won't. But I can't really say that because, again, that's a different type of program where they have very, very rigid rules. My rule, and again, it's my rule for me, is no sugar, no flour, no alcohol. And of course, no animal products, because I've been vegan for 40 years, and no oil, just because I know it's not good for you, and I choose not to eat salt. So anyway, I hope that helps. It seems like I have very long answers to these questions, and I could be less verbose. All right, so Pat, are LaCroix waters okay to drink? And so I don't recognize your name from Ultimate Weight Loss, and so because we've talked about this, but maybe not recently. So okay, see, I need more information. Okay for what? Now, if you were somebody like me that was drinking a 32-ounce Coke Slurpee with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup every morning for breakfast, sometimes having another one later in the afternoon, and a 48-ounce Dr. Pepper big gulp for lunch, then LaCroix waters is a great, great thing to do. Good, better, best. Anything you guys do that moves you in the direction to optimum health and wellness, I think is a good thing. And many people have to take baby steps. They can't go whole kale right away. I think if you have a disease, you know, very serious disease, going a little bit further, faster might be good. But if you are happy with your weight and the amount of cravings you have, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing for everybody. When I asked Dr. Goldhammer this question, if I could have them, of course he said no, but I have a little bit different relationship with him. And because here's the thing about the LaCroix. So I was introduced to these maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And the first one I had was coconut. And I remember I had quit soda in 2003. So it was like, wow, this is really good. And see, the problem is for me, as a recovering food addict, I don't like it. I mean, I like that I enjoy my food. Like I eat roasted sweet potatoes and I can eat 2 pounds of them for lunch every day, and I do. And it's like, wow, this is really delicious. I love this, and I can stop eating it. But when I get a hold of something and I go, wow, that is so good, Dr. Goldhammer said, spit it out, because see, my brain is still the brain of a food addict, albeit in recovery. And so I looked into this matter with LaCroix sodas a little bit deeper, because when I tried the first one, the coconut, I ended up drinking like 3 more. I was at a party, and there's something to that. Well, so anyway, the problem is, and again, it is so much better to drink a LaCroix soda, in my opinion, than to drink a regular soda, God forbid a diet soda. We know that those things are the worst, the combination of the caffeine and the aspartame linked to stroke and linked to dementia. And so please, whatever it takes to get off diet soda, especially, do that. And then regular soda second, and also the Zevia, the stevia soda, which I'll talk about in a minute. Please always do that. So I looked into it a little bit, and well, I didn't look into it right away because I really liked it. And as an addict, you know, I want to maximize, you know, my enjoyment. So I went to Target and I bought like literally every flavor. And it turned out that, you know, the passion fruit and the coconut were my favorite. And I'm like drinking these now, you know, 6, 12 a day because I like them so much. So what I found out is that they have natural flavors in them. Now, if you've ever watched anything, they've had these on 60 Minutes, these exposés, natural flavors, they can be natural, but sometimes natural flavors can be anything but natural. Natural flavors can be the expressed anal glands of a beaver. Beaver butt is apparently natural, and that can end up in your food. And if you're a vegan, you probably don't want beef. I don't want beaver butt anyway, even if I wasn't vegan. I don't know about you, but beaver butt does not sound very tasty as a chef. It can be the shellac, that, like sometimes these candies that are glazed, it can be the coating of a beetle. So where I learned about this, and we are trying so hard to get our schedules coordinated, because I believe he's in Canada, and I met him before he got famous, but now he's been on Dr. Oz a million times. His name is Mark Schatzker, and he wrote a book called The Dorito Effect, and it was an excellent book. And it was through his book and the correspondence with him that I learned that my idea of vegetables for breakfast did have some scientific basis in fighting food cravings and sugar cravings, because he shared some research with me. But let's get back to the natural flavors. So these natural flavors, like for instance, the Dorito Effect that are in Doritos, well, they're put in there by the processed food companies to get you to like the food more, to eat more, and to buy more. So instead of having like a raspberry, which is natural, like here, what about this? Get a club soda, smush up some raspberries, and drink it. And then you have raspberry soda. And they have this little machine. It's not a machine. Sharon McRae bought it for me. It's like a diffuser for people that absolutely hate drinking water. You put a little fruit or some mint or some pineapple on the bottom, and you go like this, and you have this amazing beverage. So, but the raspberry flavor, well, that does something to your brain. And I don't want this whole podcast to, it's not a podcast, it's a broadcast, to be about that. But the point I'm trying to make is these natural flavors are anything but natural. And in somebody that's vulnerable, like me with my food addicted brain, they don't work. But in the scheme of things, I don't think it's the end of the world. but I was drinking 12 a day, and that's expensive. And you know, the can is aluminum. Dr. Goldhammer was more concerned because they do allow you to have club soda at True North, but it's like this machine where it comes out there and you're drinking it from a glass. And then, of course, the environmental thing. So again, I don't think it's the end of the world, but if it's keeping you off soda, diet soda, and stevia sweetened soda, then I would say go with the LaCroix. And then maybe one day you could learn to drink club soda with either just some squeeze of lemon or lime or orange or a little bit of fruit juice in it, or eventually learn to drink water. All right, great, thanks. So Sandra says, for somebody brand new to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, are dates okay? Yes or no? I noticed they're included in some of the recipes. So again, I feel like the answer to every question today is, if it's good for you, do it. And I believe that, guys. You know, when I did that interview with Dr. Doug Lyle about should we weigh or measure our food, I got so much hate mail from people that are in weighing and measuring programs. And I'm like, but did you watch it? I kept saying, if it works for you, please keep doing it. But the reason I did that is because of the hundreds of people that wrote me that failed on it. So dates is one of those things, Sandra, that like the tahini and the avocado, that sometimes at the very beginning of one's weight loss journey and recovery from food addiction, we can include, and we can include in larger amounts. And as we get well, maybe not. And, you know, when I started going to True North, I've been there 10 times now, and I started going 6 years ago. I met a person who was a food addict, and she had weighed over 300 pounds. And then when you see her today, she looks like a model. And I was doing a culinary demo, and we're totally allowed to use whole food fats like nuts and seeds and avocado there, and dried fruit. I mean, we don't make them the bulk of the recipe, but we're allowed to do these things, use these things. And I was making, I think it was like something like my yummy sauce. Anyway, there's like 3 dates in the recipe, 3 dates for the whole 40 people attending the demo. And so she refused, and I said, well, how come? She goes, well, I can't eat dates. And I'm thinking, this was like 6 years, and like, you know, what a baby, or like, what do you mean you can't eat dates? She goes, oh, well, they're a real trigger food for me. And this is before I realized, you know, what food addiction was, and I was a food addict. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. And then I did another recipe, and it had like 1 banana in it. And she goes, oh, I can't eat that. I can't eat bananas. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't eat bananas? Everybody can eat bananas. Well, I didn't understand it then, and I was still obese then too. And I understand it now, because as I got leaner and healthier and my brain chemistry began to stabilize, I couldn't eat these things, at least not ad libitum anymore. You know, I remember like at the beginning, I would eat like 5 bananas, and it'd be like late at night, and that's how I knew it was an emotional eating, because I'd eaten enough, you know, during the day, but you know, the bananas were ripe and they look good and they smell good, and I'd eat like 5 bananas before bed. And I'm thinking, you know, there's something wrong. You don't eat 5 bananas before bed. Well, bananas now are just too sweet for me. I still use them in recipes like the Millote muffins when I travel, or in the game-changing granola. So I'll use them as my sweetener instead of using dates. But I don't, not to say I would never eat a banana if I'm traveling, but in general, I don't free feed on bananas. Now, I know that in the food addiction program that my friend and colleague, Dr. Joan Iflin, runs, nobody gets bananas. That's like a rule. Like, there are no bananas, there's no dates, there's no grapes, there's a whole list of sweet foods. And by the way, if you are somebody that wants to weigh and measure your food, please do it. I recommend, if you're going to do that program, if you don't want to go to one of the many free runs like Overeaters Anonymous, Food Addicts Anonymous, Food Addicts in Recovery, Recovering Food Addicts, Gray Sheet, there's probably CEA How, there's probably like 10 of them where you can get this food plan for absolutely free. If you want to work with somebody in my program doesn't work for you, or you're a person that doesn't want to do a plant-based program, I totally recommend Dr. Joan Iflin. I respect her immensely, and I think she is the world's leading expert on food addiction. However, she does, you know, advocate the weighing and measuring, but she's completely fine with people doing a vegan program, and she offers so much other support with things that will help us recover, and she's fabulous. Again, I segued. So, but I know that on her program, you know, there's no dates, there's no bananas and things like that. In the recipe guide, I believe there's 3 recipes that have dates, and one of them has like literally 3 dates, the yummy sauce. And so I know that people sometimes like to be told what to do. Myself as an Aries, I hate to be told what to do, and when I'm told, I generally don't do it. So if you need me to tell you, Sandra, don't eat dates, don't. But I think it's good to know and see where you are, because for me, when I put, however many dates in there, I'm making red lentil chili Saturday night. I think it has like 9 Deglet Nor dates for like 18 cups of chili. For me, it's not a trigger. It doesn't cause me to overeat. Now, can you take the dates out of these recipes? Absolutely. Will it change the taste of the recipe? Absolutely. You guys have to remember that before I became somebody that created the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, I was a professional chef working in a restaurant for 5 years, actually a pastry chef. And so because I went to culinary school and know about flavor balancing, the reason the dates are in there is because in the real world, that would be sugar. So, for example, in my quick sun-dried marinara in the book Unprocessed, I believe there's like 2 small dates. Well, if you think of regular tomato sauce, there's always there's always a ton of sugar. So a half a cup of commercial tomato sauce will have more sugar than even 2 Oreos. And so we're using the sugar, in this case dates, to balance the acidity of the tomatoes. In the red lentil chili, we're balancing the acidity from the tomatoes and the apple cider vinegar. So it's just that I don't have time for recipe development now to see how I would make it taste good without the dates. You might be able to use a half an apple. I mean, there's lots of people out there, like Sharon McRae, who feeds this to her family. They don't use the dates at all. So these recipes were created so that regular people would like them. The ones in the 21-day recipe guide, I tested them on regular people. So I would try them. I would try it without the dates, and if it tastes good to you, don't use the dates. So again, this is going to be something that you're going to have to test, because as Dr. Clapper has said, the poison is in the dose. And so if I ate a recipe like that pecan pie I showed you last week, where it's 2 pounds of dates and 2 pounds of nuts, I'd probably go off the rails. But a couple of dates in a recipe, they seem to work for me. Also realize, Sandra, that as I said, sometimes you get more sensitive as you go on. So now everything seems to be too sweet for me. And as somebody that used to eat 6 vanilla cupcakes with sprinkles for lunch, I mean, I barely like anything sweet anymore. I'm just totally about the savory right now. Sometimes even sweet potatoes, which are my favorite, are just too sweet. And so what I'll end up doing is microwaving them, because roasting makes them way too sweet. The other thing that's in the recipe guide that is, I don't want to say controversial, but maybe it shouldn't be there, and maybe I will redo this. It's certainly in my book. There's going to be notes that talk about how to make it for your family, how to make it for yourself, is the corn tortillas. Now, there's one recipe, the enchilada strata, which if you're not in Ultimate Weight Loss and you want that recipe, it's in the China Study All-Star Cookbook. It's 6 tortillas. So there's 360 calories of these 6 tortillas, but because it's baked in a casserole, they pretty much disintegrate. Well, I don't recommend that food addicts eat tortillas, even corn tortillas, because they're still made from flour, masa harina, even though, flour and water, even though it says just corn and lime or corn and water on the label. But the thing is, if you don't want to use it in this recipe, what you can do is use potatoes, or, you can thinly slice potatoes on a mandolin, roast them, and that can be the layers, or don't use them at all. So again, this is going to be something you're going to have to taste. Realize that corn tortillas are to the right of the red line. They're 1,000 calories a pound, so they are more calorically dense, actually twice as calorically dense as corn, which is a whole grain that's 500 calories a pound. The water's been removed. Anytime you remove the water, you're going to decrease satiety. But I would still say good, better, best, that corn tortillas are still better than air pop popcorn, which is 1,800 calories a pound. Dates are 1,300 calories a pound. Apples are 200 calories a pound. They're more than 6 times as calorically dense. So these are really good questions. How do you access the recipe guide? Oh, so the Ultimate Weight Loss, if you want it, the recipe guide is you're given when you join, along with other things, access to a private group where you can ask unlimited questions to myself and my partner, John Pierre. And that information is on the Ultimate Weight Loss page at my website, www.eatunprocessed.com. Okay, cool. Thanks. All right. I don't want to keep you guys too long. They say to the Mac that it's best to do 45 minutes, but I hate to not finish what these questions are. So if you guys want me to keep talking, type that you want me to keep talking, or I could end now and just finish these next week. So thank you for saying I look lovely today. I also, if you guys want me to keep going, let me know, because I don't want to keep you past your bedtime. Keep going. All right. Nicole says to keep going, so I'm keeping going for New. All right, keep talking. Thank you, guys. And thank you for saying I look lovely. The reason I look lovely is because I also record my weekly video broadcast on Wednesdays as well. Okay. So Christy says, I know you think it's better to chew your food. If you're on a sad diet, do you think it's okay to juice then? So I have had juice in the morning, have not craved sugar or binged. Is this because my body likes the sugar from juicing? So again, if this is working for you, guys, if anything is working for you, then do it. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to the doctors. You are your best judge. You are your best doctor. So I'm going to answer that for you, Christy. If it's working, keep doing it, or at least keep doing it for now. Do as Dr. Lyle says, run an experiment. You know, there are reasons that they probably is working. And one of the reasons is if you were on any version of the SAT diet, which is sugar, oil, flour, salt, animal products, well, in juicing, even if you're juicing fruit, you're not getting any of that. So you're going to reset your taste buds, and it can be a really, really wonderful reboot or reset. You know, at True North, they do juice fasts. Now, they don't use very much sweet fruit. It's mostly greens and maybe with a piece of apple or a little piece of watermelon. The juices are not sweet there. But when I went there as a patient 6 years ago and was not eligible for a water fast, I did a juice fast. I was very hungry and very anxious, but I did it. I did it for 5 days. And it's a wonderful reset. Now, here's the thing, and you're not getting stimulated with the salt, with the fat, with the sugar. So, and you can certainly do these safely for a very long time, and people have lost so much weight doing them. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about, Christy, because I know you, is what's going to happen after the fast. Because if you go back to eating what you were eating before, you're going to lose any benefit you had. And my concern for you is what you're eating when you're not juicing, when you're not being compliant. My concern is what you're feeding your family, buying, cooking for them, and your environment. And we can talk about that more in detail when I do these private chats just for our group. I'm going to tell you that honestly, and again, you know, when I say this, I only know who I know and what I see. So if you're somebody that has had tremendous success with a long-term juice fast, great, you know, right, that you have. But the people I've known, with the exception of Joe Cross, who I don't know, but we were Facebook friends when I were on Facebook. He did Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Everybody that I know that has lost a considerable amount of weight doing the juice fast has gained it back, because it teaches you nothing as to how to eat. And it, you know, I see people at True North every time I go that are water fasting, and then the next year they're heavier. So, you know, they say that, was it Schopenhauer that says that music is actually the space between the notes, and your health is what happens after you do these diets, after you do these fasts, which is why I personally think if you can find a diet style, well, for me it was Ultimate Weight Loss or whatever, if it's the McDougall program or Engine 2 or Forks Over Knives, that for you is delicious and satiating and sustainable, you're probably better off losing weight that way, because you will be more likely to continue it. I mean, I don't think you can continue a juice fast forever. I don't know. My also concern is, I don't know if you have things like diabetes or pre-diabetes. And by the way, Dr. Goldhammer says there's no such thing as pre-diabetes. If you're pre-diabetes, you're diabetic. It's sort of like saying I'm pre-pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. So yes, Jennifer's saying she's done it and gained the weight back. My concern is that for many people, it's too much fruit. You know, the problem with juicing in general is that you have removed the most important component of the juice, of the food, of the whole food, which is the fiber. You know, fiber is important to every single bodily process, and it not only helps flush out toxins, but prevents certain cancers. It's what keeps you full, and that's where satiety is from. It's from the fiber and the water together, which make the bulk, which creates the satiety, which is why animal products and processed food are very low on satiation, because they're missing the fiber and they're missing the water. So that is my concern, that these liquid calories are not satiating in the long run. I do think, you know, it can be a great reboot for your brain and things like that. It's saying the power is going down, so hopefully we'll get done in time. So, you know, I would suggest that as you continue the juice fast, maybe add more vegetables, like keep getting them greener and greener. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, maybe right now you need it to be mostly fruit to choke it down, but get them greener and greener. And the other thing, Christy, if this is working for you, please don't stop. But anytime you don't have to make decisions, you know, making a decision depletes willpower. And that's why when you've made the decision that I'm not going to eat sugar or flour anymore, you don't have to have willpower to decide not to eat it, because you've made the decision not to eat it. Well, when you don't have to decide what to eat, which is why True North is so successful, they've got 30,000 patients and they've all lost weight. They're eating ad libitum. When you don't have to decide, you don't have to deplete willpower, and you don't have you free up all that time in your life and in your brain because you're not having to cook. You know what you have to do. And I think that's one of the reasons that Andrew Spudfit Taylor was so successful on his 1 year all potato diet, because he really didn't have to make any decisions other than is it boiled, is it steamed, is it baked, so that can be a really, really, really good thing to do that. The other thing is, and I don't know what your financial situation is, but juicing can be really expensive. When you think about the amount of produce that you have to make these juices, you could be spending it on food. And we have designer juice places that make these pressed juices, and they're like $12 a juice, and that buys a lot of vegetables and potatoes at Costco. So that's the other thing to consider. This would be a great question for, one of the doctors like Dr. Goldhammer or Dr. McDougall, whether or not it is too much sugar, because I think it depends on your unique physiology. But I know that from a psychological standpoint, I'm pretty sure Dr. Lyle would say, because he's told people will just eat watermelon, that it is a good thing, and it's a good thing for you right now. So as long as you have enough energy to get through your day, and I don't know what your blood sugar issues are, if you have any, it might be a good thing. But I do recommend it, try to have some greens in there if you can, at least some of the juices. Chewing increases satiety, so for it is more satiating to have food that you're chewing, because having that fiber, it mitigates the absorption of all that sugar in the fruit. So that's what I have to say right now to you there, but we can talk more about this in the group. Okay, so Jeanette wants to know, is it wrong to have a potato day? Yes, it's absolutely wrong, because the veggie police come to your home and they arrest you. It's absolutely not wrong. I just mentioned that Andrew Spudfit Taylor had a potato day for 365 days and he lost 120 pounds. So as long as you're not putting butter or oil or salt or cheese on the potato, it can be a great reset, just like Christy's juice cleanse, because she's not having the sugar, the fat, and the salt, and the flour. It's never wrong to have a potato day. And sometimes when I travel, which internationally, I can't get vegetables, or at least to the degree I want, and that's when I use those green powders. But yeah, I mean, you can live on starch, absolutely. And that's why when people come to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and say, I can't do it, I'm like, well, what can you do? Because, we talked about this a little bit last week, but it's so important. I want to mention it again, that, people say, well, it's too extreme to do this. And it's like, well, let's do something that's less extreme. That, what can you do? And it's almost as if, at least every food addict that I've met and is a black and white thinker, is an all or none. So it's like they either want to strive to do an A+ diet like Dr. Goldhammer, or they're going to fail miserably. And there's a lot of letters between an F and an A, guys. Dr. Lyle on his website, esteemeddynamics.org, actually has a lecture called this. I believe it's called The Continuum of Evil. And so, if you can't do ultimate weight loss as designed, instead of binging on McDonald's, well, could you maybe go to a little bit more lenient program where you're eating just potatoes, rice, and beans? Could you do just the more liberal McDougall starch solution program instead of Maximum Weight Loss McDougall, which is the same as Ultimate Weight Loss? Can you do Engine 2? Can you do Forks Over Knives? So instead of going from what you feel is too extreme and too difficult to, as your words, not mine, failing and going back to McDonald's, could you eat some potatoes and rice and beans? You know what I'm saying? And what I really learned about behavioral change at True North is that, and I sense this always since working with addicts, is that a lot of times people fail as an excuse to keep failing and go back to the behavior, go back to the addiction. And so there's nothing wrong with failing, except that it makes you feel like a failure, and know that you're not a failure because you're trying. And that's really all that matters. Can you talk about so if you're writing questions in now, I'm probably going to have to either save them for next week's broadcast or answer them when we do the feed, because I want to get through these. So so Jeanette, people have lived on potatoes throughout human history in different times. There is something called the Con Potato Study, the KON Potato Study. You can find it in the medical literature, where a couple lived on nothing but potatoes for an entire year, and like Andrew Spudfit Taylor, had no nutritional deficiencies. Chris Voigt, the head of the Washington Potato Commission, ate nothing but, I think it was called 20 potatoes a day, his website, for 2 months, because he was so upset when the government would not allow people to use food stamps to buy potatoes, but they could buy Kool-Aid and macaroni and cheese, that he went on basically an all potato diet and reversed his diabetes and hypertension and lost, I believe, 30 pounds. He actually spoke at one of the McDougall Advanced Study weekends. So yeah, it's not wrong, and enjoy it. I mean, it could be really fun, actually. All right, so Colleen says, if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, SOS free, and aren't losing weight or aren't losing much weight, do you think that's an issue, or might that change at some point with continuing to eat this way? Do you have any idea what might cause this? Do you think middle age makes it more difficult to lose weight? Also, how important is daily exercise, like getting 10,000 steps? So, well, first of all, daily exercise is important whether you're doing ultimate weight loss or not, and whether you need to lose weight or not. For everyone, you know, we are supposed to move. I've been sitting here for almost an hour. Sitting, like they say, is the new smoking. Everybody should have a pedometer. Everybody should be striving for 10,000 steps a day. Obviously, if you're in a wheelchair, we're going to have to make some accommodations, but even if you're in a wheelchair, Jean-Pierre has worked with people in wheelchairs that have gotten them more mobility and more fitness than you could ever imagine. So consider going to eatunprocessed.com and booking a 30-minute session with him. It's only $75. So everybody needs to move their body, and it's especially important as you age, because I spent most of my life before becoming a chef in the year 2000 working at assisted livings, hospitals, and nursing homes, and many people can't even get up off a chair anymore without falling down. So you don't want to lose your mobility, and you want to gain that strength training like Julie talked about, which I don't actually have yet. So you need to do that, and if you're not doing that, you need to talk to Jean-Pierre and figure out how we can get you to start moving, because that is important. Because, you know, exercise is the only way to safely increase your metabolism, and as you lose weight, your caloric requirement is going to go down. So, you know, when I weighed 60 pounds more, I got to eat more food than I get to eat now. And so the only way that I could continue to eat as much as I wanted to eat was to add exercise to the mix. I mean, unless, you know, I'm sure there's drugs that do that, like cocaine and stuff, but I mean, naturally, that's the only way to safely raise your metabolic rate. And the thing about exercise is that it's not just the benefit of doing it, but it raises the amount of calories you burn at rest for hours afterwards. And so if you're not moving it, you're going to lose it, and you're probably not going to lose as much weight as you can. Now, that said, I didn't lose weight through exercise. I had a knee problem, but I was able to lose it without it, because diet does trump exercise. But I doubt that I would be this successful in being able to keep this much weight off for almost 5 years if I didn't exercise. And I don't go crazy. I walk my dog Bailey, who's sitting right here, you know, about 90 minutes a day, 2 45-minute walks. It's been raining, so she's gotten less. And I spin 3 days a week, sometimes 4 if I'm ambitious. And I do a very gentle form of yoga called Yin Restorative that doesn't burn calories, but it's for my mental health and my flexibility. So if you're not losing weight, the first thing I would say is please show me your food journal for the last 30 days, because usually there's clues. So that would really help for me to see that, because you told me that up until recently you were going to Starbucks every day and getting, I think it was a decaf latte. Well, hun, there's soy milk, which is really high in fat, and there's sugar in that soy milk. And so all those things add up. You know, I had a client once that, you know, and she showed me her food diary. She's like, I'm not losing weight, I'm not losing weight. And, you know, her food diary would say, you know, house salad or whatever. And I'm like, what is that? And she's like, so when we met, I looked at her dressing and it had tahini in it. And she goes, oh, well, I'm only eating 2 teaspoons a day. And I'm thinking, really? Like, you're measuring it out? I didn't have any tahini, but I had almond butter. And this is 2 teaspoons. I mean, guys, like, this is like the size of a dollar, like one of those coin dollars that you get sometimes in change. So really, you're really only eating this much in your whole salad. Anyway, it was enough to completely stall her weight loss, and when we got rid of it, she started losing again. And, you know, I've had clients do the same thing with the salt. And even though salt has no calories, it does stimulate the appetite in some of our sensitive brains who are salt sensitive, that it stimulates overeating, and we eat more than we would if the salt wasn't present, or we end up craving the opposite, which is sweet. So I would really like to see your food diary for the last 30 days and see if we can figure out what it is. But I don't want to always rehash the same thing week after week, but I'll talk about it very quickly. Is the closer you are to your goal weight, the more you're going to have to tighten the screws to get a very slender physique. So while, as I mentioned earlier, while I was losing weight, I could have some tahini and have some avocado. As I get thinner and thinner, I could not do that anymore if I wanted to be this weight. And the reason I want to be this weight is because I have a compromised knee, and the doctor told me that for every pound I'm overweight is 5 pounds of pressure to my knee, and he wants me thinner because my goal in life is to avoid surgery at all costs. being deathly afraid of anesthesia, almost died from it when I was 19, had an allergic reaction. And so that is my motivation. I don't need to weigh 117. I looked fine at 127, but those 10 pounds were sure different to my knee than when I keep myself at this weight, which I'm able to do very easily eating the way that I teach you guys to eat. So I need to see a food journal, but the way you lose more weight, if you're doing everything right, and I would say, I'm not saying this is you, but Dr. McDougall, who has spoken at our Live Ultimate Weight Loss programs many times, has said dieters are liars, and I'm not saying you're a liar, but sometimes they underreport. I want to see that food journal. I'd want you to keep it for 30 days, or at least show me the last 3 days, and see if we can find something in there. But one of the things that I see is eating late at night. And if you're eating after dinner, that's not a good thing. I don't care about what people say about it's calories in, calories out that matters. Everything that I knew was reaffirmed this last trip at True North. David Goldstein, the wonderful dietitian there, was saying this, and so was Dr. Jennifer Morano, Dr. Goldhammer's wife, is how when we eat, when we eat late at night, that affects our circadian rhythms, which affects our insulin. And remember, insulin is the hormone that stores, that drives fat into the cells. So this night eating, if you want to be slender, you got to stop it. I'm not saying you're doing that, but that's one culprit. And what you can do is narrow the feeding window. So there is a wonderful article on the True North website, healthpromoting.com, written by Dr. Jennifer Morano, where she, oh, look at that. She stopped eating after 7 and she dropped 4 pounds. Absolutely. Do not eat at night, period, for any reason. Brush the teeth, kitchen closed, clean the dishes, go for a walk, take a bath, whatever. Stop that night eating. Nobody needs to eat after dinner. If you're eating after dinner, it's emotional eating. It's not for hunger. So it's about intermittent fasting, and there's many, many ways to do intermittent fasting, and she talks about that. I've interviewed her on my teleclass. Listen to that. But the idea is to narrow the feeding window. Instead of eating all day, you narrow the feeding window from, like, for some people it's 6 hours, some people it's 8 hours. That can help. And the other thing that can help is sequencing the meals. So we teach that in the Ultimate Weight Loss program, where you start each meal. That's why we do veggies for breakfast. We do veggies at every meal, not just for breakfast, but you start every meal with the most calorically dilute food, which is a salad or steamed vegetables or a calorie dilute broth-based soup, and that has been shown to decrease overall calories in the meal. So thank you for saying I'm brilliant. I don't want to keep you guys over an hour. I think that's enough. I had these great questions. Rachel, these are amazing questions, and I'm going to answer them next week because they are so good. But I think this has been enough, because if you're not sick of me, I'm sick of me. So thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know if Kenny's going to be back, but I think it works okay like this, except for that the screen is flipped. Please go to my website, eatandprocess.com, sign up for my mailing list so that you can submit questions. And I want you to be on my mailing list, because in another week, we are sending out an email announcing the live Ultimate Weight Loss Seminar in Las Vegas, Nevada, with myself and John Pierre, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, Dr. Doug Lyle, and Dr. Carrie Saunders. It is going to be epic. And right now, only people in UWL can sign up. But as of starting January 17th, everybody can sign up. It's It's September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Labor Day weekend this year at the Tuscany Hotel and Resort in Las Vegas. So guys, thank you so much for watching episode 15 of Weight Loss Wednesday. If you like my work, please share it with your friend, because there's a share button under this broadcast, and all these episodes are now on YouTube, so please spread the word. Thanks again for watching. I'm Chef AJ, and I believe that in 2017, this can be your year to finally get both the health and the body that you so richly deserve. Say goodbye, Bailey. Bye-bye.